Overall Setting Podcast. Overall Settings. You know you are the leader now. You're taking over. It's speeder now. Overall Settings. Yes, you're on the go. Everybody want to watch your show. You're watching Overall Settings Podcast.
I'm feeling this aura. Yeah, that's the deal in this
Live on Overall Settings.
You're the vice and to the world, ambassador to the universe, and we are represent Overall Settings.
Splash the artist, sing a splash. Yeah, man. Overall set.
Your big respects to original Don Roger, Apache Indian in the place. Catch me on Overall Setting.
This is Shinehead. I found out. So here what? As pertain to the overall setting. And for the main device, you should know say a prostant from where you do it straight out. I'm watching the face and represent the overall setting.
Hey yo, check this out. This is Anthony Cruz live and direct, and I'm here to tell you about the Don North Overall Setting scene.
This is Silver Cat, aka Iron Claw, and I will be on the Overall Podcast Settings.
From me see the face and hear the voice, them know say Rasta British, the true leader. I'll be featured live on Overall Settings Podcast.
Bonjour tout le monde. You know it's Negril Jamaica now representing with the Overall Settings Podcast Show.
Hey, don't forget to this one that I'm here represent the Overall Settings. Catch me live on Overall Settings.
This is Jay right now, and you can check me out live on Overall Podcast.
Not gonna make them nice. Put me the Salaman and Tigana Overall. Me like
Coming some like wire fire every 16. Police man a fire AK-47, but soldier man, them a fire SLR. Overall settings, the podcast that differs. And you don't know it's all about bringing you the icons of yesteryear. You don't know the man, them will chop the bush for the current youth, them are there so right now. And we also exemplify and we are obligated to bring you the diamonds in the roughs. That man when me sit alongside right now, you know, him kind of different because him not fall under none of them category that we made just name out a while ago. This is an iconic figure from them time that till now, but also a very close friend as we broadcast to you live from West in Negril?
Deep West, yeah.
Deep West in Negril. Sunset Walk. I mean, the place, I true me really have like my camera, but trust me, the view, whenever I want to come to Jamaica, I have to come to that place. Trust me. You know, I see the proprietor there, right? That's so. And they are going to do them things, say hello, yeah, live, all over the world, yeah, Overall Settings, the podcast that difference. But anyway, as we get right down to business, we've been trying to do this interview for like 2 days now. and
Technical
has been invading us. I mean, we went from one point in the grill to the next, and you know, we finally reach a part where, yeah, it'll go get done now. It looks like it'll go happen. So, you know, without further ado, a very warm Overall Settings welcome to Steve Freedom Weinstein, one of the historian them, one of the pillar them in the dub plate business from Philadelphia right back to Jamaica. His name ring bells all over the world when it comes to quality dub plates and them thing there. So Steve, how are you?
45 production record.
Well, we're gonna reach that so yet, brother. Are you interview me or me interview you?
No, I'm not interviewing
We're gonna get down to business. We're gonna get down to business.
Yeah, true. All right.
A joke me I make. No, and also 45 production. And not only that, but you know, he's been a very good friend, you know, someone who is blunt, right to the point, you know what I mean, and he also gives good advice and he's helped a lot of artists such as myself along their journey within this music business. So Steve, where did it all begin for you and this infatuation and this love for reggae music?
Right here in Negril, man. I mean, I came here on vacation back in 1988. fell in love with the vibes, the natural element of Jamaica, the beautiful people, the beautiful ladies, the beautiful scenery, the beautiful everything, the ocean, the reefs, everything. I came here, and I couldn't believe such a beautiful place even existed. And then, I heard reggae music growing up, but never really penetrated the music to much of a level, other than, like, I'll tell you, when I was a kid growing up, or teen years, driving my car, and Third World came out with Now That We Found Love. And that tune just had some vibes for me, because it was playing on in Philadelphia. We have this station called WDAS, and that was the type of music that, what do they call it now? Urban contemporary.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right, urban contemporary, black music, right? And that was basically what I listened to from the time I was in my early teens straight till now. And I listened to that type of music. In college, I picked up some jazz. I really liked fusion jazz and modern jazz, or contemporary jazz, or whatever you want to call it. And but Now That We Found Love had a beat to it. There was something special about it for me. And not just that, also Bunny Ruggs' voice, and the band playing behind him, and then the words in the rhythm. I mean, the words in the lyrics. Just every aspect of that tune just really filled up my heart. So I came to Jamaica for the first time on a little short vacation in Trelawney, and the very first night I found myself in Falmouth, in the arms of a Jamaican girl, in a dance hall, in a dark little dance hall.
Right.
Actually, it was like a little dance hall with 2 or 3 little strip dancers in the corner, and I heard tunes like I've never heard before playing in a dance hall. Back then it was Cover Me and Murder Them and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, what is this? There was something special about it. And of course I had this Jamaican girl winding up on me and everything. And that was like first time in a dance hall kind of a setting, and just with some friends, and wound up really just feeling something different with that bass banging in my ears, and the vibes of the reggae, and the weed burning in the background or in the foreground or in my mouth or wherever it was burning. And and then the next day, I'm in Falmouth, and we were staying at this big old hotel called Trelawney Beach Resort, right? The next day, I noticed all the staff, like the ones that are serving the food or whatever, all pointing at me, And I'm like, word got around there really quick that I was like in the town, and it was like my first morning in Jamaica. Like, my first morning waking up in Jamaica, and the people are like talking about me already. And I was just, I just did, I guess what you do is normally as a tourist going out, as a single tourist at the time, just going out and trying to have some fun in the town, in the local town. And, but I was really amazed how the word traveled so quick,
I mean, I know most of the time the average tourist, they stick to, certain points, the Negrils, the Ocherios. And
I wanted to go out into the country and experience what real Jamaica was about. I didn't come here.
No, I totally understand that. But what my question was like, what led you to be so adventurous and actually go out, without even knowing anybody your first time here?
Well, I met a guy next to the hotel after I went scuba diving one day. I went for a little walk out, and there was this little craft market next door, and the craft market, it cracked me up. This is something about Jamaica. Jamaicans have such a sense of humor, but the stores were all named after big American department stores like J.C. Penney and Kmart and Walmart and Macy's. So, you know, so I wound up in the little shop called a little hut called J.C. Penney. And I met the guy who owned the shop, and they called him JC, of course. And he and I just started reasoning. So it was actually him and his partner in the shop that wound up taking me and my friend Byron into Falmouth that night. He said, "Come on, let's just go." So it was him that invited us to go out and show me what the town of Falmouth was like. So, you know, we just had it was a unique experience for me to be in a foreign country, like feeling the energy of the music in that dance hall. You know, you go into a dance hall and the music's playing loud. You can't really hear anything but the music, and you feel the energy, and it's dark, and it's just, I don't know, it's just something different for me. And anyway, that vacation was 5 days. And like at the end of the vacation, I'm telling Byron, yo, I'm going to stay here a little longer, you know, because this thing's just too nice. And him get vexed, you know, him no one go fly home by himself. And I'm like, Regin, come on. Well, I didn't say it that way because at the time I didn't know nothing from brethren, you know, but I said, Byron, just go home. I'm like really having the time. I've never had a time like this. He said, no, I'm not leaving without you, blah, blah, blah. I guess he was worried about me or something. But I already felt safe here, you know, even in some little city or town, whatever, I just felt safe. I didn't feel any kind of like danger or anything like that. So anyway, I relented and went back with him, and then decided I was going to save up some money and come and try and stay in Jamaica for a while. So after that first trip, that was in like March or something of 1988. I wound up back here in July, a few months later, the end of July, and wound up spending a whole month in Negril. Now, you know, I was a single, and the place to go in Negril as a single was hedonism. So, you know, because it was kind of a meat market type of place where you meet girls and hook up and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I was about 28 years old at the time. And, but I went in and I saw like all these people jumping around in their togas, and I was like, this doesn't seem like, it's not my thing. But then the next morning I went scuba diving, and I was like, this is my thing. But I couldn't stay around the resort the whole time. That wasn't my thing. So I decided to go out and venture out into the countryside. And I got some of the guys that were working in the hotel to take me on tours and show me around and everything, until I rented a motorcycle. And then all of a sudden I was out on my own, venturing up in the back bushes of Hanover and Westmoreland at all hours of the day and night, looking for friends that I had met and making new friends. And the end of that trip, I wound up inviting, because I was there for a few weeks, and I remember some of the, you know, they're not supposed to, they're not allowed to, because it's a no tipping resort and all that stuff. Employees, you know, they all want a thing. They need a thing. So instead of giving them a thing, I invited anybody who was, any of the workers who were getting off that night at a certain time to join me on a bus. And I chartered a bus to go to Reggae Sunsplash.
Oh, wow.
And I took the band with me, took a few of the kitchen people, a few of the laundry people, a few of the waiter staff, waitress staff, whatever. We filled a bus with employees from Hito, and went to Reggae Sunsplash.
Wow. And
stayed over. It was Thursday night, dance hall night, and I never experienced nothing like that. An all-night show. And then I started hearing those same Cover Me tunes and stuff, and seeing Captain Barkey and Wicker Man up on the stage, and all these artists all night. And then, like, you know, sunrise comes up, and there's reggae music still on the stage. And at the time, Sanchez Lonely was like the big tune, you know. And here I'm like watching these guys perform, and you know, if you're at the hotel, all these the latest tunes are always playing as you're walking around the hotel, and then I get to see it live. It was an amazing experience for me. But I kept, you know, we did the trip to Reggae Sunfest or Sunsplash that year twice. The first time I paid for the bus. Like in those days, I guess I was making some money or whatever. I was doing fish tanks back then, big, expensive fish tanks. So I had a few dollars and I just I made a deal with the bus driver, whatever. Took these people. Then I had 2 days or so and I was hustling. So I wound up figuring out a way to get a few extra tourists on the next bus, and I wound up getting them to pay for the bus, and a different crew, but still the band and a few other people wound up on the bus with us, and we went to some Sunsplash on International Night.
So at this particular time, you're just more of
I was a tourist,
from
man,
a fan standpoint, tourist,
just learning about reggae music. Getting alert to the music and to the songs and to the energy of Jamaica from a tourism perspective.
So what would you say was your first actual what would I say venture into, like what aspect of it did you like enter?
Into the business?
Yeah, the business aspect.
All right.
Was
a few years later, traveling to Jamaica back and forth, whatever, I became friendly with some of the band members from that same hedonism, one of which I became real close, like family friends. He had a baby and he made me his son's godfather. And all of a sudden I'm a godfather in Jamaica. Oh gosh. But they call him Sly. He's an engineer and a drummer and a real musician. And Paul, he's not really Sly and Robbie Sly, but he's Paul Francis Sly, Paul Sly Francis. Anyway, when he would go on tour with certain artists, if he was in Philly, he'd call me. If he had time to stop in Philly, if he was in New York or somewhere near Philly, he would call me. And he was always coming over to my yard. So one time he called me. He said he just needed to get out of Jamaica for a while. Could I buy him a ticket? And I did. He flew up and we found ourselves on my back porch. And this, you know, I had been to Jamaica a bunch of times and I wanted to move here, but I didn't know anything about what I would do when I came here. I had spoken to expats who had lived here and they're like, well, if you're going to come here, you better learn a little about the culture and understand what you're coming to. And don't show up with a lot of money and no plan, because that money will go right out of your pocket fast. And you got to have a plan. You got to have a way to do something. So I took that very seriously. So I crafted a plan. Well, with Sly's recommendation, we were sitting on my back porch outside Philly in Winmore, where my studio was. And he's like, you know, if you want to do reggae music and you want to get involved in reggae music, why don't you bring a studio? We need a studio in Negril. We don't have a studio in Negril.
Wow.
Negril needs a studio. And, you know, I said, but I don't know much about recording. I know about making a cassette or whatever. At that time, I was really good at making good classic sounding cassettes. But and he's like, listen, find out what a dub plate machine is. Look up dub plates. Find out. Investigate and research what a dub plate is and how you do it. And from there, a few weeks later, I was in the back of EQ magazine, Recordist magazine, all these like music magazines, and I saw a little ad for a guy that sells dub plate machines, which are actually record cutting lathes. That's what you use when you're recording a record, is a lathe, because the record spins on there and it has a needle that actually cuts a groove into the record, you know. So I called this guy and started picking his brain, and then I found out who makes the blanks. Then I found out who makes the needles, and, you know, a little research, and I ordered a machine. Because I really wanted to come to Jamaica. I wanted to come here. I wanted to live here. I wanted to try and make a business work here. And frankly, I didn't know much about any of this, but by that time, I was well into the reggae culture in Philadelphia. I was friends with a lot of band members in Jamaica, people who played music. I found myself in recording sessions. Whenever I was here, I would go to little studios that they, little throw up studios that they put in all over, in the outskirts of Negril, like in Savlamar or in Green Island or whatever. And I was getting little bits of exposure to music by that. But really and truly, I trained myself. I hired somebody to show me how to cut dub plates, how to tune the sound on a dub plate, what to do, how to make test cuts and all this stuff.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, you told me that one of the first people that you, or two of the first people that you actually ever recorded were John Holt and who else?
Barrington Levy.
Wow.
This is after I had my studio up and running. I sent out some flyers all over Philadelphia into all the Jamaican shops and said, "There's a brand new Sound Boys. Come check out this new dub plate studio." And I put my phone number in there, and like 2 days, the people started calling me because there was nowhere to record dubs in Philly at the time. There had been a place called Travelers, but they locked Travelers down, and my place opened up all of a sudden, like maybe 2 years, 3 years later. And so after I opened up the studio and I had learned how to get my studio is a little tiny room in my little tiny house in Wynmoor. It was a little place. But I learned how to cut dubs. I was learning how to record dubs and all that because it's an art. Being able to handle all the equipment and learn. I actually went up to Don Juan's studio up in New York and watched how a whole recording session actually goes, and asked for permission to watch and keep an eye and see how everything goes, and then watch them cut dubs up there because they had it, So I took my little lessons and I came down, and Barrington and John Holt came to my studio, and then I cut dubs for Love Symbol Sound and King Acid Sound and Reggae Vibrations, and my dubs sounded pretty good. And then they started sounding much better, and then much better. And then Sly, my engineer friend from Jamaica, came up, and he started making a few little adjustments on my mic and turned my mic into like a golden mic. It had just had
I remember that. I can clearly remember
a sound people just couldn't understand why that little sound in their ears when they were voicing was so damn sweet. So
technically, even though you started out as a novice, in the business, a true blue fan, you weren't originally from Jamaica. You were born in the Philadelphia area.
Yep, Chestnut Hill Hospital, man.
But you went on to defy all of those odds and become the number one dub plate studio, probably the only dub plate studio in Philadelphia at that particular time.
At the time there was nowhere to cut a dub. There was places to record a dub, but if they wanted it on an actual plate, on an actual piece of steel, they had to come to me to get it cut.
And I could clearly remember coming there, back in those days, and it had like that yard vibe to it. Even though it wasn't owned by a Jamaican, you came there, it was in this secluded area, even the way you had your studio set up and all of that, it kind of give you a Jamaica
Remember
vibe.
That big Rasta man head?
Man, it's the nightmare trying to tell man, so it's it gave you that yard feel.
And then the house was a concrete house. It was like a square concrete, very simple house.
Exactly.
And it kind of had a yard vibes to it. It just, because that little neighborhood was like a post World War II 1944 house or something, and the house was made of poured concrete, and it just had the house itself had a little bit of a yard vibe too, and then I had a nice little backyard and like a few fruit trees in the yard. I had apple trees and I had blueberries, all that kind of stuff.
So how long would you say you were in existence there?
In Philly before I moved here?
Yeah.
I ran my studio in Philly for about 7 years. And during that time, the long list, the parade of artists that came through Philly because they were on tour.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Anthony B came through Philly a bunch of times, and every time
I was about
he came,
to ask you who were some of the
Anthony B came to my place with his whole tour bus, and everybody came out, including backup singers and everything, and whatever, and everybody was hanging out in my backyard, and my neighbors would look over and they're like, they shake their head because they couldn't believe this whatever, this guy has all these like reggae artists wearing their robes and all this stuff coming into the place, and everybody felt comfortable around me.
So you were technically open 7 days a week at that time?
At all hours too, because
whenever somebody
needed to cut a dub, sometimes an artist is visiting Philly,
mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden Love Symbol will catch that artist and grab him and take him in the car, and like 2:00 in the morning they'll be knocking on my door and like bring in like Leroy Smart or somebody like that.
And even before social media became that predominant in the business.
Well, we had AOL back then,
right?
Dial up frigging.
But I mean,
AOL.
it wasn't like that go-to. You know what I mean? Like how people send files at real time now, and you'll cut a dub and
I used to actually like record onto DAT tape and put the DAT tapes in a FedEx packet and send
That's
them
what
off.
I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I mean, even at that particular time, I can clearly remember you having a wide network of people that you would deal with all over the world.
Yeah, but
so
I was using the internet because there used to be a whole lot of there used to be these, like, they called them BBS or bulletin board systems. And I used to join all these BBSs using my AOL thing,
mm-hmm.
and put out like announcements to the people who liked reggae, rec.music.reggae or whatever. And I put out announcements, and, people still hang out, not on bulletin boards, but
mm-hmm.
on groups. There we had news groups and bulletin boards and all that stuff. And I was putting out stuff. I guess you call that the beginnings of social media or whatever. Right. And I was putting out my, like, let's say Yellow Man was coming to Philly for a show.
Mm-hmm.
Before I even talked to Yellow Man, I'd send out all kinds of announcements that he's coming to my studio. I just was very presumptuous about the whole thing. And I knew that I was going to be able to get them to the studio if I had orders, because artists come to a town like Philly and they want to do dubs. Where else were they going to do them but Job Freedom in Philly,
Who would you say was one of your bigger customers, or somebody?
Customers?
Yeah, as far as like sounds that you dealt with, like people that would cut with you all the while, like.
Well,
or do
I would say
Snow
studio. White, Natty from Snow White.
That's Jersey,
that's
right?
in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Blacks and Rusty were there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Reggae Vibrations.
Philly, one of Philly's number one premier sounds. Even right now, they're still
not
active.
They're not a Clash sound, but they always bought dubs when there was an artist they wanted in their box.
Right.
Then Love Symbol, and when I had a Beanie Man session, and it's like that was like a Soundboy party in my yard, because once Beanie Man was in Philly and then I had him in my house,
mm-hmm.
every sound man from everyone that knew about it,
mm-hmm.
if people were ordering dubs from me and sending money by Western Union and MoneyGram and any which way they could send money then, and people were buying dubs, the sound men were coming from New Jersey, from Delaware, wherever, and showing up because it's an opportunity without having to go to Jamaica or send to Jamaica to a hustler who might take their money. They were able to come and actually deal with Beanie Man. I remember Beanie Man's pockets were so full of money, he was having a hard time walking out of my place. He was, at the time, He was charging like 500 US a tune, and
Wow.
people were paying it. And it seemed to me like people were actually in competition with each other
To see
who could
can get the
buy
most.
the most dubs.
Wow.
So he was there all day, and I remember, like in that time, I didn't understand the whole hustle thing. I was charging for my studio time. I wasn't charging for the dubs. You know, the artist was charging for the dubs. Well, you know, there's a buy low, sell high in every friggin' business, man. You know, so like then it became a better thing for me to like try and negotiate for prices with artists and keep the sound men kind of out of it so that I could eat a little food out
Run
of
a
the
program, yeah.
yeah, because that's how we eat.
Right.
But eventually, still working.
Yeah, man, I'm good, man.
All right, still. Eventually, it became a like I learned, and I learned there was a way to make some cash, you know. And I had a goal in mind, and that was to get my studio out of Philly and down to Jamaica because I had plans, you know. So my intention was to buy a real set of recording equipment and you know, but I didn't have the cash, so the only way to make the cash was to hustle dubs.
So
know?
what was that transitional period? I mean, because if you were
7
already
years.
No, I'm saying like even prior to that, like from you being a fish tank,
Hey, up to the last day I was in Philly, I was still cleaning fish tanks and maintaining and selling.
Okay, so
fish
the
and
dub business wasn't necessarily.
It was a side gig. It was a side.
The dub
gig.
was more the dub gig. Was, okay.
But it did at one point. I think about 2 or 3 years into it, it became very. It became profitable enough that I had to like, you know, I had to report everything I was making, and at one point, I got one of those letters, you know.
Oh wow!
So they wanted to know what I was doing and where the cash was coming from.
Oh
you know?
Wow!
So, but you know, I worked all that out. Everything was level.
Right.
But anyway, my initial goal when I was thinking about a dub plate machine and became into the business was really to move to Jamaica. Although, let me tell you something. I lived in Jamaica-delphia because Philadelphia is one rotted little Jamaica.
Yeah, manners.
May I tell you, Jamaica, Philly has a real Jamaican vibe to it if you go to certain places at certain hours. We really did have a Jamaican culture in Philadelphia, and you told me people in New York were laughing at you because you told them you were an artist from Philly, you know. But Philadelphia, we did have some good artists, and then we had some real artists that lived in Philly. One of which is definitely El Fico.
Respect
yeah, man, that's true. I recognized that years ago.
Right.
And then, but there's a real camaraderie amongst the Jamaicans and the people in the sound business. Hey, I can't leave out Federation Sound.
Yeah, man, big up Kenny Mees and Max Clears and Curly Locks and the whole of them mute there.
Those guys. Curly was also a big customer of mine, you know, Curly from Genesis. I don't know if he's still operating.
I mean, there was a lot of things that you kind of were there for the beginning of, if not actually being one of, you know, those people who had a hand in pushing, you know, the whole remix thing, and you know what I mean. So
Kenny pushed the remix thing.
But I mean
all those remixes to dub and
but you still were one of the, like I said, you still had a hand in it because you were distributing.
Well, that's true. I was putting out the remixes on dub
exactly,
because that was at the time that was the only way to. People were playing turntables in Philly.
Right.
People did not play digital music until after I left Philly. And the weird thing is, you know, I moved my dub plate machine to Jamaica. I had to get certain things like, because the electricity is a little different here. We have 50 cycle electric. In America, it's 60 cycle electric. So I actually had to go to a machine shop and have pulleys changed so that they would spin the machine at the right speed. I mean, some technical things, but, you know, I spent a fortune getting that dub plate machine to sound just as good as anything came out of Arrows or Dynamic Sound.
Right.
And I really did spend a fortune on it. And then was very disappointed to find out that at that exact time that I was setting up my recording studio in Philly, and it was not just a dub studio. We had production, we had dubs, we had rehearsal, we had voiceover. We did all kinds of any kind of recording, all forms of recording. But I wanted to set up Western Jamaica's premier recording facility, and I pretty much I reached that goal. It was a really good sounding, really good vibes yard for music. We did a lot.
You're talking about prior to when you came here, or
no, when I got here.
So but tell us a little. Just all right before we get here.
Okay.
At what point did you actually know? Okay, Steve, it's time. You know, what actually happened at that moment? What
pushed me out of the U.S.?
Yeah. At what point did you know that?
9/11.
Okay.
I was like, I'm hearing about bombs hitting buildings and or planes hitting buildings and things like that. And then there was like this anthrax scare a few days later.
I remember that. That.
And
People
I was like,
anthrax in the
and I was in
all
Philly working on one of my customers' fish tanks. And I look out and there's some I guess it was just ash falling out of the sky. It was weeks after 9/11 happened. And I saw ash falling out of the sky. And I was like, oh shit, anthrax,
wow.
So I'm like thinking, I'm not here. I love Jamaica, and I know Jamaica is not like a place where they're going to bomb buildings. They're not going to be sending planes down here to because it's not a strategic target. So it was my strategic target to come here and open a recording studio and get the hell out of that target that I was living in. That's what it felt like.
So even though you had that vision prior to when we had that tragedy, that particular time, was like, so I mean, I guess if that didn't happen, do you think you would have?
No, I was planning on coming. I had excuses, I had fears, I had trepidations, I had everything, but I was really planning on coming here because it was something that I loved. I was living in America, working and saving every spare dollar I could after I paid all my bills and everything else, trying to get enough money together or a plan to get to Jamaica. I was always in Philly trying to come down here.
Wow.
I like Jamaica. I like being here. I felt more, let me tell you something. I never felt closer to who Steve is as a person till I came to Jamaica. When I came to Jamaica, I just felt natural.
So you probably was like Jamaican, like in like another lifetime.
Could be. I don't know.
I'm just kidding.
I don't know. True. It could have been, maybe in another lifetime I was, but also there's people I have to attribute part of my success in Philly. One of the people I have to attribute one of the most promotion that I ever got. And
one of the biggest contributors,
the biggest push that I ever got to success amongst the Jamaican community was maybe some people know him, maybe a lot of people that I'm talking to now or that are hearing me now wouldn't know who he is. But we had this guy in Jamaica that he was a true Jamaican godfather named Al Ayrton Reed.
Yeah, man. Big respect to Al Reed, man.
Yeah, the late great Al Reed.
The uptown general, man.
Yeah.
Germantown and the whole of them place name ring bells.
Al Reed and his brothers, Flyer and Michael.
Yeah, man. Flyer.
Those guys.
Yeah, man. So you don't know my uncle, man, Sonny and Rata. And Pluggy.
Yeah, I know Rata and Pluggy. All those guys.
All right, now so Pluggy passed away.
Yeah.
Sonny passed away.
I remember everybody.
I'm an uncle and
wait. Rusty's dad.
I forgot his name, but I know exactly.
I remember his name.
I know exactly.
Rusty's dad is still alive, though.
Right.
I believe. Yeah.
Right.
And anyway, but Al met me one day at Martin's Aquarium in Jenkintown. I heard this big loud voice coming, and I could hear the Jamaican in it. And I walked up to him and I said, "Well, go on, my brethren." And he couldn't believe a white man a chat patwa to him, you know. And he just started smiling, and we started talking about roast fish and dumplings and all these things. And Al used to love more than anything. He loved to talk about food and cuss. He used to love talk about Jamaican food and cuss. So one day I get a call from him. He invites me over to his yard, and this is before the studio was even up, and we just became really good friends. We sit around in he had this amazing basement with amazing sound system, a big beautiful fish tank. So we had the music and we had the aquarium thing in as friends, you know. So the day that Barrington Levy and John Holt came to my studio, there was a show with Barrington Levy and John Holt down at one of those downtown venues. I don't remember which one it was. And
Downtown?
Yeah, it was downtown.
I mean, it could have possibly been like not the Ritz.
I
mean, we had so many different.
I don't remember which one it was, but anyway, we wound up backstage. You know, Al Reed always went backstage, and his brothers are back there drinking and chilling and talking. And I didn't even have a studio yet, but Flyer was back there going around and singing praises about this man, yeah. Him have the wickedest studio anywhere in the world. Come on, bigger than anything in New York, you know. So like, he promoted me like that. It was a bold ass lie. I wasn't lying, but Flyer was promoting me, and by the time it all caught up, my studio was the biggest thing it was the biggest thing amongst the Jamaican community.
He spoke it into existence.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I dreamed it into. We all pushed to make it happen.
Right.
But,
it was a collective effort.
Yeah.
You know. So I mean, by the time you got here, like, what were some of the earlier challenges that you faced
here in Negril?
Yeah, like once you got
one of the biggest. Good question. One of the biggest things was first finding a location, because like finding a good convenient location that wasn't too far off the beaten track, that wasn't that was accessible to everybody, that you could easily give directions to, because one thing I learned, it's not easy to give a Jamaican directions. They just don't want to listen. So it's just true, man. And I lived in a place, my little yard where in Winmore, that wasn't so easy either. And
the whole heap of time I come up there and I'll pass it, you know.
Yeah.
So I've been exactly
because all those houses kind of looked a little bit alike and everything. But anyway, it's not easy to give a Jamaican directions, you know. So anyway, finding a good location, finding a building that was appropriate to turn into a recording studio, that was the thing. When I moved to Jamaica, I didn't have money to buy my own place. I didn't have money to set up my own. I came here with the money from selling my house.
Oh, wow.
I sold my house. I sold everything that I didn't really need to carry. I sold a few things I should have sold. You know, you can't look back.
So there was really no turning back at that point.
No, man. I sold everything. I gave away my dogs. I couldn't carry my dogs to Jamaica. That was really painful too, because that was one thing that kept me in Philly for a long time, was my two dogs. I had the dog that remember Caesar with the dreadlocks?
Yeah, man, remember Caesar.
So yeah, I had to leave my dogs behind. It was a big sacrifice, but it was a new chapter.
So how long would you say that did it take you before you kindly had your feet firmly placed and, you know, started to establish yourself as a force?
Well, the studio went up literally once I arrived in Jamaica until it was open for business. I was working day and night, and a whole bunch of people came. They saw a site. People love get a little business on a site. You know, people not working, whatever. People just come help. So there was a lot of help that I was paying for, a lot of help that wasn't really doing much that I was paying for too, but whatever. We got the studio actually up and running and wired in about 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Literally 6 weeks. So, I mean, it may not have been perfect, but like we had the place up running and actually sound coming out of the studio and stuff happening after 6 weeks. So it was pretty miraculous, to be honest, but I was driven to make it happen.
So
you know?
at that particular time, were you
scared out of my mind? I have to tell you. No, not scared about Jamaica, but scared about
I mean,
the risk I took.
know I never that to that. But what I'm saying is, so, I mean, you got to remember, we're talking about somebody who had a successful business that was already up and running.
And also, I had put my foot in the door of the reggae business. Because
Right.
every artist that came to Philly and a lot of artists that came from other areas to visit family or friends in Philly wound up in my house at all kinds of
that's what I'm
hours,
saying.
you know?
So what I'm saying is, it wasn't like your business.
And plus, here I am in Negril, you know?
Right. But what I'm saying is, at that particular time in Jamaica, it wasn't like, I mean, in Philly, it wasn't like, okay, 9/11 hit, and then your dub plate business like kind of went to hell, or like you were still making money at that particular time.
No, well, when 9/11 hit, up there I was.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so I mean, so
less, but I was still making.
Yeah,
money.
but you were still active. It wasn't like, okay, the business went out of business.
No, man.
That's what I'm saying.
Continued
so
because we didn't really have a crash because of 9/11.
Right.
Too tough. Not immediately, anyway.
So you left, came to another location. You know what I mean? So remember,
I knew it was going to take 6 months to a year before things really started to kick off, and I would say it took somewhere between 3 and 6 months. What happened was, we had a show here in Negril right after I moved here. There was a show down by the beach park, which is right by the center of town. And Ninja Man was on the show, and a whole bunch of like not so famous, maybe some of the one-hit wonders, but a few big names. Capleton was on it, and I remember the show. It was like sort of a charitable event type of show. It was a charitable event for an artist or somebody who was a good friend of most of the artists who had gotten, he fell or something and he got crippled, and everybody came to give him like a support. Everybody came to give him a hand. So all these artists from Exodus Yard and all the dub studio artists came to support. So the next day after the show, people wound up in my yard. And I had a few customers, like beginning when I first started out, that wanted like inexpensive dubs. So I remember pulling out like a pack of $1,000 Jamaican bills, which I guess at that time was worth maybe $15 each or something, $15 each. I picked out, and I handed it. Each man would come into the studio and give me a bunch of tunes, and he'd walk out with $1,000 in his pocket.
Wow.
And that was no big money or anything, but I then sent the tunes up to Canada and gave the guy a bunch of dubs. I cut the dubs. Of course, I made a little profit on the whole thing. And everybody went back to Kingston and started bragging about how much money I gave them, because, oh no, man, me get 10 grand. And they started like trying to outdo each other with how much Freedom paid them. But
20 give me.
Yeah. So I didn't give it. I gave everybody a little thing, and they all were able to get home, which was a great thing for them,
Right.
And it was a great thing for me because I was able to. It sent my name out. Plus, a lot of these artists had been to my studio in Philly, so some of them knew me already, and then the ones who didn't know me heard about, hey, there's a nice new dub plate studio, a really professionally set up nice dub plate studio and recording studio. Them have everything that you can do here in Kingston, down in Negril. Them I'll cut dub plates, cut steel and everything. So like everybody was going to Kingston, the artists were going back to Kingston with the word that there was a decent place to come record, and their mic sounded wicked. You know, Sly was my engineer here too in Negril. So, you know, and not my dub plate. I was my dub plate engineer.
Wow.
When I first opened up here, I was the guy in the dub studio. Sly was the engineer in the production studio, and he would come and tune things and change plugs around and all that kind of stuff. But he was doing the engineer work, really, production engineer work. But my place wound up being, look, we did a lot of things that was kind of new. We did like an apprenticeship program, both for foreigners and locals, for recording engineering.
Wow.
Because, you know, there was some foreigners that wanted to come to Jamaica and get the Jamaican music production and stuff. So I put it out on the internet for that too, you know, because I was looking for a way to get inexpensive help also in my studio, because you know, you're starting a business. It's not easy to pay salaries to people. So I was able to get apprenticeships, you know. So we started by giving, and right now, a lot of the people that work for, I'd say most of the people that came and worked for me in Negril at my studio the studio was actually running for about 6.5 years at the time. And most of the people who came to learn about recording and everything from me are somehow either somewhat involved or immersed in the reggae business.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, one of my apprentices is working for Zojak, which is the biggest distributor of music online in the world. They sell to iTunes and all the other stores.
Right.
And you know, so everything that gets downloaded from iTunes or any of those places, including the streaming sites, if Zojak is putting it out, Zojak has to do reporting to all the artists and the producers and the reggae, the record companies that put out these music, and they get a monthly check from Zojak. Zojak is they call an aggregator. So they bring in they turn the cash into whoever's pockets.
Around what time would you say that the business started to make that transitional period from dub plate to?
Well, it wasn't just dub plate; it was dub plate 45. I mean, we actually were doing production work, and I was stamping and pressing records too, trying to get a little piece of it as well. I did that almost immediately. I mean, as soon as we had a rhythm, I started voicing artists. And eventually, I mean, my goal when I got here was to try and build up to a point where I could buy myself a piece of property and build my own place. Because let me tell you, I didn't really get into this yet, but I had some, you know, there's this tradition. Remember the tune from Half Pint? Ease up, Mr. Landlord. Can't take no pressure in my yard. Yeah, remember that? I lived that song. I tell you, I really lived that song. I had a whole lot of pressure in my yard, and my landlord did not like the fact that he saw a white man earning a real living in his yard. You know, and you know, these are just I knew I was going to have a little yin and a little yang. I knew there was going to be some dark times and some not so easy times, and there was going to be good times. Luciano became a regular at my studio, you know. Anthony B was a regular at my studio. These guys would call me 2-3 weeks ahead. I would line up a whole lot of work for them, and I would line up a couple of our production rhythms. And if they heard something they liked, they'd sit down and pen a tune immediately, you know. It happened a bunch of times. We did put out music. We recorded a lot of music. My thing was I didn't want to do any remakes. I didn't want to have to record music and then start paying like some American artist for the lyrics, you know. So we really tried to put out our own thing, and also with the name Ja Freedom, you can't put out tunes with certain subject matter, you know.
What would you say would be one of your, like, from the time when you started to dabble into the production to when you took it on, what would be a song that of yours that people would probably
One of my,
recognize?
well, I don't think I ever put anything out that hit that hard. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you why. The music business, whether it's reggae or any business, is about 5% music and 95% business, which means really dollars run music, right? Yeah. So, like, at the time when I moved down here, I took my life savings and poured it into trying to get this thing up and running and turn it into something, right? So the money to promote tunes and put out tunes and, sorry to say, pay off radio stations and get airplay and all that kind of stuff, it just wasn't there.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I was just some broke pocket studio trying to get a start. Really. It wasn't until really, you want to know what really kicked it off financially was I got an email one day from this Japanese girl in Japan. And she had a love for reggae music, like as deep as mine. And she emailed me and asked me what I was doing. And she asked me some real pointed questions about what kind of equipment I had and what I was recording with and which artists had come to my studio and what kind of links I had to get other artists. And eventually, it didn't take long, but after I answered everything because this looked like it might turn out to be some kind of opportunity. And it got to the point where she sent me she sent me a sample order, to try and see how I did. And it just happened that order was with Sprague Benz.
Oh, wow.
And Sprague came to Negril for ATI, which is now like Dream Weekend.
Yeah, which is probably currently in this time.
Well, it's coming soon, you know? So Sprague came for ATI, and I wound up calling him, got his number somehow, called him up at Hedonism, told him I had dub plate work for a Japanese sound. Oh, once it's for a Japanese sound,
every reggae
jumps
artist
for
ready.
Japanese because Japan really promotes reggae, but sound systems in Japan pay bigger money for dubs.
Yeah, man.
So I ran up the beach road, picked up Sprague, and brought him back to my studio. He wasn't very patient. He's like, "You're this far?" Like, everything in the grill's 10, 12 minutes away. So once we were on the road away from the hotel, he's like, "Where are you taking me? Where are you taking me? I don't want to go to no ghetto." I said, "Bredgen, don't worry about the ghetto. There's no ghetto where my studio is. It's like in a decent location and everything." So Sprague came to the studio. I voiced Sprague, and I voiced a bunch of other artists for her for a couple of weeks until she realized I was a straight guy. I was sending her what she ordered. She was getting good quality recordings. She was getting them cut on dub if she wanted them. She was getting everything pretty much right away. And so we started doing some like bigger, and the orders started growing. And the orders started growing. And the orders got really big, and she was starting to send like regular, like multi-sound orders because like Ja Freedom was sending really good quality dubs to Japan, and that really pushed the business, and that actually helped me to buy my land. Wow. It actually helped me to build my new house, and I was planning on making it eventually get me to build my studio and finish building my own studio in my new home. And then other things wound up preventing that. But she eventually, with my help and recommendation from me, she wound up being a sales agent in Japan for that same company, Zojak, and got iTunes aboard with Zojak, which was the biggest thing that ever happened to Zojak, and not just iTunes in Japan, but iTunes internationally.
Wow.
So that like made a huge deal for her. And then she wound up coming to Jamaica and wound up hanging out in Kingston for a while and meeting the guy who owns the dub club, the Kingston Dub Club. That's Gabri Selassie. And once she wound up moving here, wound up not really needing much from Ja Freedom and
Right.
Negril anymore, you know, because
right.
she was right smack in the middle of it in Kingston. So, and with Gabry. So, I mean, sometimes the nice things that you do come back at you, but it wasn't, I don't have any, when you do good things, you have to do them with a good heart.
Yeah, and then, you know, everything in life is temporary. You know what I mean? And it's not like, you know, she gained something from it, you know, and
I built my house from
exactly.
it, so I
It's-
can't really. I
right,
don't
right,
look bad at it badly, but
right.
I wish in a way it had continued as it was, because she was the reason for a lot of my success in the business. Because when you're putting out a lot of orders for dubs, you become, at one point you become one of the biggest dub dealers in Jamaica, and for a short time that did happen.
So at that particular time, were you still doing actual dubs, or were you like CD, or were at this point are you emailing stuff to people, or
when I first started doing dub plates, when I first came to Jamaica and got set up, I thought I was going to be cutting a lot of dubs. You know, people were still cutting their tunes to dub, but then also as I moved and right around the same time I opened, people were dumping all their tunes from their record collection to CDs, because it was much easier to put like 25 tunes on a CD and carry all of, instead of carrying 25 records and having to like fumble through 25 records, you know. It's much easier to just find the CD on your list. And then it wasn't long after that when people started putting all their, like, dumping their CDs onto hard drives. And then, you know, and then everybody started carrying their music around with they were doing the what do they call that thing? The scratch, the Serato, yeah, the Serato
virtual
scratch,
DJ,
and all those things.
You know what I mean?
Everybody was playing their music digitally, and so the dub plate thing was for like more collectors. I remember this was a really cool thing. The Japanese girl, her name's Ai. Ai called me up and said that she wanted to, or she linked me, and she said she had an order for a real music collector that wanted Bunny Wailer. And I had never voiced Bunny Wailer, never had a chance to voice Bunny Wailer. So I was like so elated and so excited to go meet one of the originators.
Really?
Of reggae land called Aquarius, which is like one of the original top quality, one of the best studios. That was where Bunny wanted to meet me, and I wound up voicing Bunny Wailer for her client in Japan. And then I was there for a few days and then came back. I actually voiced the Silvertones at the studio in the same session for somebody else, and met the Silvertones because, of course, I was recording them, and they became regulars at my studio as well. You know, like being in Kingston, then I realized like it might be good for me to be on both ends of the island. You know, go to between Negril. When I had a big order, it was actually better for me to just jump in my car and collect the money at Western Union and go straight to the studio and go deal with them in various studios around Kingston. So I found myself on that little lane in Aki Walk where Cell Block is, and Oxygen.
Cell Garden.
Yeah.
You got Jack Scorpio.
You got Jack Scorpio at the top of the lane. One of the best little Rasta food spots right on the corner there. And then, but I wound up in Oxygen Studio because at the time, Chris was doing some really good, fast, excellent quality dub plate recordings. And me and Chris became good friends almost instantly. So, you know, and then all the artists were passing through. I remember chasing Gregory Isaacs all over Kingston to get this dub done, man. I wound up at his studio. You know, he wasn't an easy guy to catch up with.
So at this time, your studio was still.
I would have to leave my employees at my studio, which I would get it. This is a challenge you have. A cash business in Jamaica, the owner has to be there, or somebody who's honest and straight to the owner. And it's not easy to find that honest and straight. I'm going to tell you, it's really a challenge here, but whatever. The owner leaves when the cat's away, the mice play. So I would build the business up to a level, and then I would leave because I had a lot of business in Kingston, but I would leave a busy running studio in Negril, and I'd call and say, "What's going on?" "Oh, Brethren, the yard's empty, nothing guan." I'm like, "What do you mean nothing guan? I left the studio yard full of people.
Yeah.
What do you mean nothing guan? I left and all of a sudden the place just gets empty? What? You guys are all there. What do you mean?" So, I mean, I didn't have, at the time, cameras, internet, all that kind of stuff wasn't so easy. So it wouldn't have been as easy to just pick up my phone and watch what's going on in my studio.
Mhm.
And frankly, I think my cameras would have gotten a black spray paint treatment, you know. But there was, you know, I would imagine there was plenty of stuff going on when I wasn't around. So, but I would pick up, go to Kingston, stay up in the Blue Mountains with a friend, and go down into town and do what I had to do. And that went for, like, when I went to get my labels pressed, I became friends with the owners of Solographic Printers. I became friends with everybody in the music business. I was really involved, and it was fun, and it was exciting, and it was, you know, it kept me really enjoying my venture into this, you know. Go ahead.
So from the fish tank business,
Yeah.
to the dub plate business, to the production business, to ultimately building it to a certain point in America, Philadelphia to be exact, moving to Jamaica, establishing yourself as a force for in a little under 6 weeks, you know what I mean, and going on for about 6.5 years.
6.5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So where did you get this vision to be where you are now, like in the midst of a guest house where you can actually...
Well, let me tell you what happened, Vico. In 2008, my house was just about, like, it had a roof on it.
Mhm.
For the most part, it was a finished building, but it wasn't finished. You know, a lot of the walls weren't finished rendering. A lot of the windows weren't in. There was no bathrooms yet. Most of the windows were not yet in when I moved into my house.
Mhm. Now this house is a house that you built. This house is a house that you built from the ground up.
From the ground up. I bought a 1.25 acre piece of land out of the I should say the profits or the cash flow or whatever you want to call it of the dub plate and recording business, and turned it into, like, the basis for what was going to be the new Ja Freedom recording studio. And my intention was to make it be a guest house recording studio or hotel or a recording resort where people could come, bands could come from foreign, book their studio, book rooms, stay. I mean, we already have one like that in Kingston, in Port Antonio, called G Jam.
Mhm.
But that's G Jam was built by Chris Blackwell and this other gentleman named Baker. I'm not even sure of all the owners or whatever, but that was a very high end, multi-million-dollar studio and big fancy hotel right near Golden Eye and all these other Port Antonio fancy spots. And my thing, I live in Negril. You see where we came? Look around you. Where we came is like some rustic thing, and that's like the vibes of reggae music is rustic.
Mhm.
You know, you can do music in any recording studio. You can do reggae music in any recording studio, but I like the idea of a natural energy that, like, gives inspiration from the Most High. We're not looking for fancy. I wasn't looking for the $600 or $1,000 a night beds. That wasn't my thing. I wanted to give reggae bands from Minnesota or Wyoming or whatever a chance to come in and do their music and stay and not kill themselves trying to do a really professional album built with local musicians, top local musicians to do,
Yeah, man,
do-
I'm listening.
you know, to do their music.
Give thanks.
That was my idea, was to try and build a not a budget, but a reasonably priced place at a point that was more in keeping with the vibes of Negril. So with using Negril as a backdrop, having Negril a playland, Negril is really the playground for Jamaica, I believe, you know, because we have our scuba diving and at the time there was jet skis and parasailing and water skiing and all the things that you can do. And then there's
Dream Weekend.
Yeah, all the parties and all that stuff. And every night when I first moved here, every night was a big party with big reggae acts, which was another good reason to come here, because there was always a flow of artists coming into Negril to perform. So they come in, they get their little chump change at whichever venue they were going to sing at, and then they come to the studio, and I'd have an order for like 15 tunes for them.
Wow.
So they'd leave with like an extra 250,000 Jamaican dollars in their pocket or whatever, and they're like, "Ja Freedom, you're the best."
Yeah, man.
You know. So, and artists like Anthony B would come in, I'd make a deal with them at a reasonable price and then get like an order for 20 tunes or whatever. And, you know, they appreciated that kind of, they also saw that I was able to profit from the work without killing them. And they were happy to see me doing something that was building my own success and helping all the artists at the same time. They also noticed that I had foreign engineers, and they loved that too. So it was like the whole concept of the thing just worked. You know, it was really good. You know, it was difficult to leave Negril. There were times when I was doing production work where I had to do stampers, I had to do mastering, I had to do record labels, I had to do CD labels, I had to go from one place to another. And I was actually in Kingston one time for 6 weeks away from the studio. And when I got back to Negril, they're like, "Oh no man, nothing did I go on when you were gone," you know. I mean, how do you leave a busy business and all of a sudden when you leave it's just dead? That's a mystery to me.
Crazy.
But you know, that mystery is history.
So that spawned the you know, so you obviously needed somewhere to live, you know.
I needed my own place to live.
Yeah,
renting a room, renting a house that was all recording studio and one bedroom that was just not the right thing. I mean, it was right for getting started, but it was not the right thing. I left my own home, my own piece of land, and a mortgage to move to Jamaica, and I was able to eventually, after it took me about close to 8.5 years or 9 years of being here before I owned my own land, no mortgage, outright.
Yeah, man.
The Jamaican style. You know, you buy your land, you pay for your land, and you buy your pieces of you buy your blocks and your cement, your concrete, and you get your drawing, and you build your thing.
You could literally fit like 3 or 4 of your houses.
Of my old houses into the house that I built here. I built something really special.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, I've had the opportunity to stay there. I've been staying there for the past couple of days now. Possibly might even be staying there. Possibly might even be staying there tonight.
Of course,
it's
there, man. I told you my place has tande. Nah, left
So you know, it's a wonderful experience. You know, like how far from where Dream Weekend usually is?
Pretty much right smack in the middle. I mean, we're not on the strip of Negril Beach. We're on the west end, but my place is like overlooking Negril Beach. And like there's restaurants and places to eat and supermarkets and little grocery stores and you know, like everything is right within either walking or taxi distance, really close. You know, it's really
beautiful, nice, secluded, you know,
and it's
secured area.
Everything.
Right. You know, it's you know, it's a wonderful place. I mean, I'm there, you know, and I've been there.
Comfortable. Look, let me tell you, COVID has killed the guest house business. It's killed the smaller hotels, the people that want to, people who have a bed or a couple of beds or whatever. They can't afford all these COVID protocols and everything that the government is. Look, the government's doing their job. They're trying to prevent the spread of a virus. I don't have any problem with that, and I want to comply too. But and I do comply by keeping my place sanitary and clean and doing all that stuff. But to register with all the protocols, the government protocols, I just, you're not doing any business. How can you do it all? Right. I mean, where's the money going to come from to do all that stuff? It's just not there.
And one of the near attractions as well is this place that we're at right now. Excuse me, sir. Sunset Walk.
Sunset Walk.
Sunset Walk is located where?
It's on the deep West End. It's about 12 minutes or 15 at the most from where Ja Freedom is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's a beautiful place on the deep West End.
And you guys also have food here and things of that nature, right?
Yeah, bar and grill.
Bar and grill. You know what I mean? Sunset Walk. Tell them the location again.
It's on the West End Road, man. You can't miss it. It's just you have to go past the lighthouse. You go past where the road splits, and you keep going until you see this. You see the dish, the satellite dish on the right side of the road. This says Sunset Walk.
You can Google map it.
It's a pretty little Sunset Walk.
Facebook. You have an Facebook, Instagram, the world works. And I mean, like, we're here, the hospitality. I taste a little piece of the fish since I've been here. So, they wipe
the fish comes from right out there, man.
Right, that's so. You see, right, you see, right, that's so.
That fish was swimming about an hour before we got
All right, you see this wonderful, remarkable area. I'm on my laptop, so I can't get too, intricate with all of the details, but you could just clearly see behind me from what you can see that this is, a beautiful location, somewhere to sit down and hold a vibes among friends or carry a nice lady, you know what I mean? Or,
even do a podcast.
Yeah, man, or even do a podcast. You know what I'm saying? I'm out here with, this is like 20 some odd years of friendship.
We've been friends for about 25 years.
Yeah,
and
man,
it's a real, Fico, I know we've been friends for a long time. I missed you as a dear friend and as a brother and as somebody who really loves reggae as much as I do. I mean, you are reggae music embodied, you put out some real music and everything. But let me tell you something. You brought me back home this time when you came. You made me feel like it. The difficulties that I've been going through or whatever, in spite of all that, you make what I've done worth the journey. Right. I have to tell you.
Give thanks, my brother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like at the end of the day, I mean, that's all we can do. I mean,
help one another.
Yeah, that's all we can do. You know what I mean? I'm glad you picked this place.
You have to tell them about the five funniest things, and that. You have to tell.
Like I said, this place right here where we're there right now. You couldn't pick a better place, brother. Sunset Walk. You couldn't pick a better place. I mean, Negril.
The vibes just carried me this place.
Yeah, man, I love it.
Where I was thinking of going to Sir D's, which is still locked down, right? Because it would have been a nice place for the interview, but we wouldn't have had any kind of facility, And I just, I missed it going right past it. So there must have been a reason why I missed it. And then we wound up.
Yeah, man, it was destiny, man. Destiny.
This was the right spot.
Yeah, man, destiny.
And we have to give thanks to Martin because he really gave us a good hosting.
This interview is gonna be on Steve's Facebook page. It's gonna be on YouTube. It's gonna be, snippets of it are gonna be on CVM. So it's gonna be everywhere. It's actually gonna be a part of an upcoming movie project that we're working on. I'm out here in the grill filming a movie as we speak with Richard Brown Films and Jamie Wood. It's the first movie that myself and my company, big up Mickey Settings anyway, yeah, right now, Sharpman Settings, Merm Settings, you know what I mean, the overall Settings family. We're actually...
Got Freedom Settings.
I don't want to Settings family, you know what I mean?
Steve Weinstein Settings.
Move your bumper clock. Yeah, but no, but you know, we're out here on a mission. You know what I mean? Although we're in paradise, you know what I mean? I'm home, you know, but at the same time, you know, we're here to make an impact, you know what I mean? And this movie, this upcoming movie that we're working on will be released in probably, because these guys work relatively quick, so I would say in less than the next 3 weeks, it's probably going to be out. I'm actually leaving here to go shoot the last couple of scenes, you know, so we're going to have to skip out of here, but excerpts of this interview are actually going to be incorporated in the movie, you know, so when you come to Jamaica, remember Sunset Walk, remember Ja Freedom
in Negril,
you know what I mean?
Freedom Guest House,
these
Freedom
these
in
places
Negril.
are probably what, like 5-10 minutes away from each
12
other?
minutes away from each
10
other.
to 12 minutes away from each other.
And eventually we're going to have Ja Freedom recording studio back up. And
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That's a
guys.
must. That's a must. And
Yeah.
we're going to make our contribution to that and do everything within our power from where we are to make that, to see that vision, you know, come to fruition.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know,
Because let me tell you, people in the music business will want to come down to Negril and really enjoy the vibes of Ja Freedom, because
Right.
I really did make a big hit down here with my studio.
Yeah.
So
that was just the tip of the iceberg, Steve. There's more to come.
yeah,
There's more to come.
yeah.
So, you know, I just want to thank you guys, you know, for tuning in. You know what I mean? Like I said, whenever you come to the grill, just remember these 2 words, Ja Freedom. And like me say, remember Sunset Walk. Yo, thanks for the hospitality, brother. You know what I mean? You know, we really appreciate it. Overall Settings, the podcast that differs. Please subscribe if this is your first time here. Encourage other people to subscribe. Look out for the movie Good Soup
Isn't
coming
there a
at
bell
you.
they're supposed to ring too?
Yeah, man, notification bell. You know what I mean? To let them know whenever we go live. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see you guys on the other side. I had like canceled all of my interviews this week because I got so, you know, engulfed in doing this movie. But Steve found a way to wiggle his way into the movie. So now the interviews are part of the movie.
Now I'm a movie star too. I don't believe it.
and you'll be hearing about Sunset Walk in the movie as well. So yeah, them don't know the thing go. It's all about Overall Settings, the podcast that differs. And since we're here with a dub plate chemist, I think it's only right to end it with this. Dub plate style again.
All right. Silly of you to think that you could ever test overall. We will kill you. Silly of you to think that you could ever test the overall. We will kill you. They're just some jump on. I know that overall of the done you in a cloud. What could it be in you that people see? What could it be? Oh, overall. Oh.
Put about the boy, put about the boy, put about the boy, I'm not gonna lie, never ever ooda. I swear I need a good woman to make a sacrifice. Put it to broke her back to make her fika beef in nice. I always stand good, till the diamond good. Tell them and them alone forget the price. And I swear I need a good woman to make a sacrifice. Put it to broke her back to make her fika beef in nice. I always stand good, till the diamond good. Tell them and them
them alone forget the price. Yeah, yeah. When time to be successful, you need a good woman when I gonna make life stressful. Man, I'm no time for being regretful. Can't act think like she a living a cesspool now. She better go and holy fight. Yeah, she better go and holy fight. Yeah, from she holy fight and the results can be great. So listen to the words of man a state.